A powerful Viking man could survive storms, raids, shipwrecks, and years of dangerous travel across Europe. Yet many feared something far closer to home. A single woman could change the future of an entire family. That sounds surprising at first. Most people imagine the Viking Age as a world controlled entirely by warriors, chiefs, and kings. Popular culture often presents Viking society as a place where men held all meaningful power while women remained in the background. The reality was far more complicated. In many parts of the Viking world, influence did not come only from weapons. It came from property, reputation, family alliances, inheritance, and social standing. And women stood at the center of all those systems. Picture a busy summer settlement beside a green fjord. Ships arrive at crowded docks. Merchants unload silver, furs, and iron. Farmers bring livestock into markets alive with noise and movement. Travelers share news from distant lands. Everything appears to revolve around trade and power. But behind nearly every successful household stood decisions made inside the home itself. A marriage could unite wealthy families. A marriage could expand trade networks. A marriage could strengthen political alliances. And a failed marriage could damage all of them. For ambitious Viking men, choosing the wrong partner could become a disaster more costly than losing a ship. Because wealth was not simply stored in silver, it was stored in relationships. The Vikings understood that family connections created opportunities that no sword could win alone. And once a woman became part of that system, her influence could extend far beyond the walls of her household. That is where the story becomes far more interesting. Marriage in the Viking world was rarely just about romance. It was often about strategy. Picture wealthy families gathering during a bright summer feast. Long tables overflow with food. Merchants discuss trade opportunities. Travelers arrive with stories from distant coasts. Local leaders negotiate future alliances, while gifts exchange hands beneath the glow of firelight. Every conversation carries consequences. A marriage agreement could affect property, trade routes, inheritance, and influence for years. That meant women were not simply passive observers inside these arrangements. They were essential pieces of the entire system. A successful marriage strengthened households. An unsuccessful one could create conflict spreading across multiple families. And unlike many people assume, Viking women often possessed legal rights that gave them meaningful influence. They could inherit property in certain circumstances. They could manage estates while husbands traveled. They could oversee household resources that kept entire families functioning. And perhaps most importantly, some could seek divorce under specific conditions. That mattered enormously, because divorce was not merely an emotional event. It could become an economic earthquake. Land ownership might change. Property could be divided. Family alliances could weaken. Future inheritance plans could collapse. Imagine a powerful man spending years building influence through trade, farming, and political connections, only to watch part of that structure unravel because a marriage failed. Suddenly, reputation suffers. Relationships become strained. Negotiations become more difficult. The damage spreads outward. The Viking world depended heavily on trust, and trust was fragile. That is why marriage carried such significance. For many ambitious men, success required more than courage and wealth. It required maintaining stability inside the family itself. Without that foundation, even powerful households could begin losing influence surprisingly quickly. But family influence extended far beyond marriage. Reputation shaped nearly everything in Viking society, and women often played a major role in protecting or damaging that reputation. Picture a crowded marketplace during summer. Merchants bargain beside muddy roads. Travelers exchange news from distant settlements. Craftsmen display valuable goods. Farmers discuss harvests. Everywhere people talk, information moves constantly. The Viking world had no newspapers, no social media, no instant communication. Instead, reputation traveled through conversation. Stories spread from harbor to harbor, from farm to farm, from feast to feast. A respected household gained opportunities. A disgraced household lost them. That made family behavior incredibly important. Powerful men depended on social standing to maintain influence. Trade partners preferred trustworthy families. Allies preferred reliable families. Marriage negotiations favored respected families. And women often stood at the center of that public image. A well-managed household demonstrated stability. A successful estate reflected competence. Strong family relationships signaled reliability. Meanwhile, public conflict, scandal, or family disputes could weaken social standing remarkably fast. This influence became especially important when men traveled. Many Viking men spent long periods away from home. Some traded overseas, others fished along distant coasts, some joined military expeditions. During those absences, households still needed management. Animals required care, workers required direction, property required protection, resources required organization. Women frequently handled those responsibilities, and the success or failure of that management affected the future of entire families. A prosperous estate enhanced status. A struggling estate damaged it. The consequences reached far beyond daily life. In a society built around relationships, reputation functioned almost like currency. And the people controlling household stability often possessed more influence than outsiders realized. The most dangerous threat to a powerful Viking man was not always an enemy. Sometimes it was a family conflict. The Viking world placed enormous importance on kinship. Families protected one another. Families traded together. Families negotiated together. Families sought justice together. Because of that, personal disputes rarely stayed personal for long. Picture a large gathering near a river during summer. Hundreds of people arrive from surrounding settlements. Merchants unload cargo. Farmers lead livestock through open fields. Local leaders discuss disputes while crowds gather to watch decisions unfold. Every major disagreement attracts attention. And once attention appears, consequences follow. If relationships between important families deteriorated, opportunities disappeared. Trade partnerships weakened. Political alliances fractured. Trust eroded. The effects could spread through entire communities. Women often stood at the center of these family networks. They connected households through marriage. They maintained relationships between relatives. They influenced decisions involving inheritance and property. They helped shape the future of family alliances. When those relationships remained strong, households prospered. When they broke down, problems multiplied. This created a fascinating reality. Some of the most important power struggles in the Viking world occurred far away from battlefields. They happened during negotiations, during inheritance discussions, during marriage arrangements, during disputes between families protecting their interests. Powerful men understood this. Many victories achieved through force could be lost through poor family decisions. A successful leader needed more than warriors. He needed stability. He needed cooperation. He needed trust. And those qualities often depended on people whose influence modern audiences frequently underestimate. That hidden influence shaped Viking society far more deeply than many imagine. The Viking world admired strength. It celebrated courage. It respected successful warriors, traders, explorers, and leaders. But beneath those visible achievements existed another system quietly shaping everything: family, marriage, property, reputation, inheritance, relationships. These forces rarely appear in dramatic stories about raids and longships, yet they determine the success or failure of countless lives. Picture a thriving summer harbor filled with ships arriving from distant coasts. Merchants negotiate beside crowded docks. Farmers bring goods into busy markets. Travelers share information from across Europe. Wealth flows through the settlement in every direction. At first glance, power seems obvious. The richest merchant, the strongest leader, the most successful trader. But look closer. Behind many of those successes stands a household functioning effectively year after year, resources managed carefully, relationships maintained successfully, property protected, future generations prepared. The Viking world depended on these foundations, and women often played central roles in keeping them intact. That is why influence extended far beyond the battlefield. A powerful man could gain wealth through trade. He could gain status through leadership. He could gain fame through achievement. But he could also lose opportunities, alliances, property, and reputation if family relationships collapsed around him. The Vikings understood something many people still overlook today. Power is rarely held by one person alone. It exists inside networks of trust, loyalty, and cooperation. Those networks created prosperity. Those networks protected influence. And those networks could be strengthened or weakened by decisions made far from the sea, far from the battlefield, and far from the adventures that usually dominate Viking history. That is why some of the most influential people in the Viking world never needed to command a ship or lead an army to shape the future around them.